Well, hello, that's me again. Today is January 10th, 2024. It is Wednesday, it's the hump day, and let's start with some interesting news. I will start with the issue, of course, of the continuous garbage which is being thrown around by the Western media. And we will start, of course, with a thing which really doesn't exist in the United Kingdom as such, which is the UK intelligence. And I mean it in both ways. For example, we have now on the 10th of January the so-called intelligence update from Defense Intelligence of the Great Britain, which is, I don't know, they don't have any armed forces, really serious ones, so they don't have even the intelligence there, because pretty much everything they wrote ever about special military operation is a complete garbage. However, these guys say you have to applaud them for being stubborn, and they do the same thing over and over again. They gather basically scan and browse all possible Russian media sources, because obviously they don't have real reliable sources in Russia in terms of real intel, and they just reprint them and interpret them as they want. For example, they talk about Russia collapsing in terms of, skills and training. Russia has accidentally discharged 2 aerial munitions on 2 separate occasions in the past week. Russia's Ministry of Defense stated that on 2nd January 2024, one of their aircraft discharged a munition damaging 9 residential properties in Petropavlovka in Russia, Voronezh Oblast. No, I don't think so. This was something else altogether, and I don't remember them saying this, but hey, if you can find it, sure, why not? And we know basically pretty much everything they do in the government of the United Kingdom, including, of course, its defense ministry, is pretty much being equal to the tabloid reporting. However, look at this. They say that, the second incident on 8th of January occurred with the discharge of FAB-250 unguided munition over the village of Rubezhne, Luhansk Oblast in occupied Ukraine, and was confirmed by the pro-Russian head of Luhansk People's Republic. Possible. I'm not saying that this is not possible. Actually, one of those things did happen, and this is of where they report correctly. Previously, on the 20th April 2023, Russian Su-34 aircraft also had the abnormal discharge of aviation munition over Belgrade, which is correct, that this thing did happen. But look at this attentively, considering the operational tempo of Russian VKS, Russian Air Force, which is absolutely unheard of in modern times. If you take a look at it, then you have what? 20th April 2023 and January 2024. You know what? 10 months, 9 months, not bad for repetition of these occasions when Russians fly incredible amount of the sorties, and I don't have the exact number of it, I will probably have to look it up, but it's many hundreds of thousands. So, in this particular case, yeah, crap happens. Sometimes munitions do, just decouple from the aircraft, and so it's not too much for all things considered. Now, obviously, we have the other UK intel, which is, of course, again, there are no normal professionals left in the UK Defense Ministry. Whatever the intelligence, it's all joke, basically. These are the guys who are capable only to harm, basically Skripal's cats, but here it is. So here is the, tabloid Business Insider, which of course refers to so-called UK Intel, which is UK Intel is nothing more than tabloid journalists who could be assets of the MI6, who browse and get direct info from Kiev regime. So they say that Russia is on a course to lose 500,000 troops by the end of 2024 after turning its forces into low-quality, high-quantity mass army, says UK Intel. Well, no, actually it is a very low quality and very low quantity of the UK troops, but because these guys still think about themselves as something special, they cannot, come to grips with the fact that they are nobodies really economically or militarily, they kind of project it. So they say now that Russia is on course to lose 500,000 troops in Ukraine by the end of the 2024. The UK Ministry of Defense says. I don't think so. There, as I already stated, there are many competent people left there, and when you talk about the army of Great Britain, which can barely field by 2025 one maneuverable armor brigade, so yeah, what do you expect? A bunch of amateurs. So, and obviously they just do propaganda. But here we have obviously other important thing. Here's Sergei Shoigu, the guy who runs the army, which is arguably the best army now in the world, not to mention the fact that we might start using the term the finest fighting force. And here he gives the estimates on the what is called Collegia of the Ministry of Defense yesterday. And he makes the estimates, and again, don't forget, Russians are extremely conservative regarding all that, because Russians do not count corpses that they cannot count, they don't see them, and especially they don't count numbers which are dying in huge numbers in operational and tactical area. So they say that Shoigu says Ukraine lost over 215,000 troops and 28,000 units of military hardware in 2023. This is why UK military is so butthurt, because they have been shown what their Challenger tank looks like, and it's a piece of garbage, basically, you know, rumbling pile of metal, which, you know, once it encountered the serious army, it started to burning. And so there you go. And here's what Shoigu says. And he talks about that, as RT reports, claims to, you know, to hold their strategic initiative. There's no claim. It's happened already. And basically, as already have been stated many times, there whatever is left of armed forces of Ukraine is actually broken force. And here comes what Shoigu says, and which is true, but it also shows the degree of the delusion and complete incompetence on the America's part. Shoigu said that despite Kyiv's heavy casualties, the US is set on trying to realize its world's leadership ambitions at the expense of Ukrainian lives, urging the country to conscript yet more troops. So, and here is the contradiction, which cannot be resolved, and it's completely on the America's side. And this contradiction is the fact that you either fight things yourself and you become respectable military power, or you can do, you know, as Shoigu says, try to realize its world leadership ambitions by throwing a bunch of the cannon fodder from Ukraine into Russian meat grinder, and not only losing it, because operationally we already saw that Pentagon and let alone London are absolutely operationally incompetent. They do not understand how the modern combined arms operations of scale are conducted, but there you go. So they think that if the more Ukrainians they kill by, you know, basically death by the cop, the more they become, you know, and realize their world leadership ambitions. Actually, it only diminishes it. In fact, is the more the United States continues to do this, less and less it will be respected in the world, considering the fact already much diminished respect or fear of the United States around the globe. And here, what I want to point out also that even, you know what, everybody says about it now openly. You have ABC News, for crying out loud. Look just what they report on this operation yesterday. Hospital sees 30% rise in seriously wounded Ukrainian soldiers, says doctor. And he is talking about the what, it's not Dnipro, there is stupid substitution of the classic Russian name of Dnepropetrovsk, but in one of the hospitals there he says, you know what, we few hours drive from the fighting is now receiving between 40 and 100 seriously wounded men each day, with his team performing between 50 and 100 surgical operations in any 24-hour period. So you can calculate yourself, and if he is talking about the 30% rise of the wounded, and we're talking about seriously wounded, there's a lot of amputations and, you know, just maimed people, just the way it is. It's war. So you can count yourself, and this is just one hospital in the very large city. Dnipropetrovsk is actually more than 1 million population. So this is, kind of, a little bit of the seat rep for you. But I will start with very funny issue today. I already posted it on my blog, and here is the thing which is downright incredible. Here is the mission statement by none other as the new Chief of Naval Operations of United States Navy, Lisa Franchetti. Here's Lisa Franchetti starts, stating the mission of the U.S. Navy. And this is important because actually it was preceded by the statement of the, interview basically by the commander of the Russian Navy, Admiral Menin. But here we are. So Lisa Franchetti talks about who we are. We are the United States Navy, the most powerful navy in the world. We are the sailors and civilians who have answered our nation's call to service. We are Americans who embody character, competence, and dedication to our mission. Well, it all sounds great. In fact, she has a case, obviously, that United States Navy is the most powerful navy when it comes projecting the force against really subpar enemies. United States definitely has this, and it's carrier-centric navy, but we will talk about this shortly. But look what she says. What we do. We are here to preserve the peace. Okay, that's funny. Respond in crisis and win decisively in war. Well, obviously it's a good statement. It's a very wonderful pep talk. And some people in comments at the U.S. Naval Institute publication website, they say, oh yeah, it sounds so nice. No talk about this what you call affirmative action or DEI, whatever it's called. No talk about climate change. Just let's fight. Okay, sure. The problem is, of course, and judging by the performance of the United States Navy and the Eisenhower carrier battle group against Houthis, I would kind of be very reserved about the decisively winning in any war, not to speak about the fact that actually on the ground United States didn't win thing in decades. So, and they say we operate far forward around the world and around the clock, which is true. That's what they do. From the seabed to space and cyberspace and in the informational environment to promote our nation's prosperity and security. Well, that is basically all gobbledygook because in terms of prosperity, United States economically have been declining, and in terms of security, it's really funny. Nobody really wants to attack United States, but they say that we have to deter aggression and provide options to our nation's leaders. Okay, sure, I get it. I mean, it's nothing wrong with per se in this statement, but here comes the other thing. And this is when you begin to really smirk or laugh. Look what she says. Well, where we are going and the threats to our nation, our interests are real and growing. No, they are not. The only thing which is the threat is the fact that Russia is basically won the arms race and China won the industrial economic race long time ago. And you know what? They were not the threats. They should ask, Lisa Franchetti should ask what's happening inside the United States, which brought country to this basically state. But look what she writes. Our adversaries have designed their militaries to overcome our traditional sources of strength. I don't know what our traditional sources of strength are in the United States, which loses its wars consistently in the second half of the 20th century and the start of the 21st century. But I don't know what strength she's talking about. I don't find very many, honestly, except for the nuclear deterrent, which is still becoming old and obsolete. But hey, whatever. So she says, We must move rapidly to stay ahead and continuously create warfighting advantages. We must think, act, and operate differently, leveraging wargaming and experimentation to integrate conventional capability with hybrid, unmanned, and disruptive technologies. Well, let me put it this way. I read wargaming starting from the Cold War, which have been done, for example, on the base of the U.S. Naval War College. Most of it was garbage, because it was garbage information, garbage in, garbage out, and they never expected the proper development of the naval technologies, which they now have to face. Why it is so? I did video on this. If you go into the archive, so to speak, of my videos, I spoke about it. But look what she says. Tomorrow's battlefield will be incredibly challenging and complex. Yes, it already is. To win decisively in this environment, our sailors might be the best war fighters in the world, with the best systems, weapons, and platforms to ensure we can defeat our adversaries. Well, yeah, it's all good words, very big words, and, very important words, but they have basically nothing behind them. And here we will have to kind of do some review. And she's talking about we will put more players on the field, platforms that are ready with the right capabilities, weapons, and sustainment. And here I have issues with the platforms, and that's the capabilities. But hey, you know what? She is a interesting woman. But let's kind of get back to this thing. This has been done by an interview by none other by Admiral Stainfield Turner. And he was both the CNO and he was, of course, later the director of CIA in Carter administration. But look at this. It was 1976. I just remind you, the Christian Science Monitor. He's basically describing who has the best Navy. Guys, can you believe this? It has been, almost 50 years ago. And you're talking to people who thought as strategists, who thought as the competent naval both commanders and engineers. And he's talking about here that the big carrier is vulnerable to long-range missiles. No carrier could survive a nuclear missile blow. So the great American superiority in projection of power a shock counts heavily in situations short of a Soviet-American war, but counts for almost nothing in such a war. This is the brilliant man. And let me put up his biography, who Stainfield Turner was. And he was a friend of Admiral Elmas Zumwalt. And if not for these guys, United States wouldn't have had today normal, at least some cruise missiles. But look at him. He graduated Exeter College, Oxford, and the United States Naval Academy. And look what he did. He also received his undergraduate degree in electrical engineering and attained a commission in the United States Navy. He was a Rhodes Scholar at the Exeter College, Oxford, and so he has a degree in philosophy, politics, and economics. Okay, that's pretty cool. He actually graduated also Harvard Business School. But let's take a look at the Franchetti's background, just, for you to understand. And hey, I'm saying nothing. Just take a look who this lady is. Franchetti was born on April 25, 1964. She studied at Northwestern University Medill School of Journalism in Evanston, Illinois, being awarded a Bachelor of Science degree in journalism. Journalism and science are actually oxymoron. But hey, and earning department honors in history. While at Northwestern, she joined the Naval Reserve Officer Training Corps. Okay, the lady, for all her, she commanded, some served at some the destroyers and even commanded destroyer. So she has zero engineering background. She has zero STEM background. And guess what? She writes and pronounces those words while the United States Navy, even before the Stainfield Turner, was identifying the issue with the United States Navy, as was Elmas Zumwalt. And Roger Thompson, my acquaintance, he published through no less than United States Navy Institute Press, Lessons Not Learned, the U.S. Navy Status Quo Culture. And that is why when you look at what Franchetti tries to do, I have news for her, obviously. United States Navy was, remains, and will continue to remain in observable future, obviously a carrier-centric Navy, and as such, it is not designed to fight a peer. And what is the peer? Well, the peer obviously is Russia and China, which have, and especially Russia, field the missile, anti-ship cruising missile forces which United States Navy simply cannot intercept. And how it happens? Well, you need to ask those people who actually were responsible, for developing the strategies and the procurement programs for the U.S. Navy. And what is interesting just comes, today, simultaneously almost, with this Franchetti lady who is the chief of naval operation, and people say she's not DEI hire. Well, possibly not. Probably she is very good. Who knows? I don't know. But here is what Commander-in-Chief of the Russian Navy called U.S. ships a threat to Russia's national security. And he states the only, basically, real danger for Russia and Russian shores, which are correct, are, the U.S. Navy ships which target Russian territory with Tomahawk cruise missiles. Admiral Nikolai Yevmenov told to his interview in Krasnaya Zvezda, Red Star. And here what he expands on all that. Basically, first we have to start immediately to discount this funny thing because it was evidently added by the RIA News journalists, probably with degrees of science in journalism. But look what they do. They mention this, and of course they are wrong. Potentially altogether, 70 Arleigh class destroyers and Ticonderoga class cruisers, they can carry more than 7,000 Tomahawk missiles on board. Well, that's the journalism for you today, because they cannot. Not because they don't have enough cells or basically, containers in which they can carry those Tomahawks, but because no American ship will ever go to sea having all of its whatever 19.6 or 112 whatever cells basically loaded only with the Tomahawk missiles. More than 50% usually are loaded with the air defense missiles. So that already cuts in half all this together thing. And of course, we shouldn't forget that a large portion of any Navy always in some kind of the either rest or in some kind of repair, because you have to maintain navies, for them to be able to go to sea. So, but again, what do you expect? These are journalists. But here it is. Here's Yevmenov says about factors which Russia faces. The presence of powerful foreign naval groups in Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, as well as in the Mediterranean Sea. Nothing changed in the last 100 years, pretty much. Plans of other countries to infringe on Russia's interests in the Arctic through the revision of the status of the North Sea route and the possible passage of warships. Not gonna happen, because Russia already has an overwhelming naval force there, and United States Navy has nothing to, basically to insert there, because United States Navy, well, actually US Coast Guard, has only one icebreaker, and the only way United States can basically depend on here are to such countries as Finland, Norway, who have some icebreakers which theoretically can try to break ice into Russian Arctic, but again, they are too late. And when you have the missile systems and the forces which are basically aggregated, accumulated in Russian Arctic, with Mr. Putin today being at Chukotka, no less. So, yeah, you kind of see the desperation. But then, of course, also Yevmenov says that active deployment of naval missile defense groups and development by nuclear submarines of US Navy and UK of the Arctic basin. Yes, United States has a very serious submarine force which goes to Arctics, and Russian Navy definitely could be proud of this very dangerous, very well trained, and technically very sufficient, let's put it this way, submarine force. So Russians have to deal with this force in the Arctic. But then Yevmenov explains what is being done by Russian Federation to kind of address this issue. He talks about that, As the commander-in-chief noted, the existing threats to national security require the presence of a modern navy capable, together with other types and branches of the armed forces, to ensure strategic nuclear and non-nuclear deterrence against aggression and the protection of Russia's interest in the world ocean. Russian littoral is untouchable already because of the powerful naval forces which are shore-based, and of course Russian submarine force, which is arguably second the best in the world. And I mean, Russians deploy probably the best submarine ever, which is of course Yasin class project 8A5, which carry all those horrendous missiles ranging from caliber to zircon. So, and then Yemenov also mentions he said that the Navy would increase the number of Marine Corps personnel. All Marine brigades will be turned into their divisions, and the Caspian Flotilla Regiment will be turned back to actually brigade size. In addition, he said, naval aviation will receive Pacer and Okhotnik attack drones, Yemenov added. Why it is important? Well, especially Okhotnik. Here's Su-57 flying with Okhotnik. And this was 5 years ago, when already the Okhotnik went onto the trials. After that, Okhotnik performed all over the place, including obviously their use of the Okhotnik here. You can take a look at it. It was on the 27th of June 23, and Okhotnik already was operational first time in the zone of the special military operation. And it bombed some targets very successfully in Ukraine. And guess what? Nobody really knows what it can carry. Nobody understands what is capacity. Some people say it's 3 tons for the internal base of this stealthy thing. But you know what? Who knows what it is? It is clear that it can carry all kinds of the anti-shipping cruise missiles, and being stealthy and being now in the serial production, well, you know what, Russian Navy will operate this thing too, and it's a very long range. What is important, it can be also operated by evidently Su-30 SM, 2 new generation of the Su-30s and Su-35s as their dedicated wingmen. So make conclusions. What are the chances of any naval force to deal with the massive salvo of the anti-shipping missiles? So what can I say? It is very symptomatic that Mr. Yevmenov, in a very calm manner, without any kind of big words, basically, just went out there and described what Russian Navy is doing and how they judge the situation. And as I already stated, and you can quote me on that, indeed, the United States lost the arms race. And no matter how Franchetti, who has no engineering background, she obviously understands what is the TOE, table of organization and equipment of the US Navy is, then she probably talks to some people who are truly competent engineering wise. But I don't think so United States Navy has any future as the power projection force, as Mr. Stainfield Turner predicted in 1976. That, yeah, you can project power against some, I don't know, some Zamunda, but you know what? Try to project power against Russia. The only thing the United States Navy can do is to shoot as many Tomahawks as it has, and hope that some of them will leak through somewhere in Russia. That's the only modus operandi they have. After that, you know what? Once they launch Tomahawks, Russia will launch Kinzhals. And actually, Kinzhals will arrive to the U.S. Navy targets, namely, the aircraft carrier and destroyers, earlier than any Tomahawks will even reach the Russian airspace. And that's what has to be understood. And this is the gap which cannot be bridged in 5, 10, or even 15 years, especially with Russia now developing, well, they already developed, they say, the Mach 13 plus Zircon, and if it was 1,500 kilometers range, if they say now it's more than 2,000 kilometer range, it's way beyond, any kind of the capability of carrier-borne aviation of the U.S. Navy. And so, yeah, U.S. Navy becomes this wonderful kind of obsolete force with some beautiful ships, make no mistakes. American nuclear aircraft carriers, CVNs, they are, imposing, very impressive ships and beautiful ships, but they are, they're just, useless in the modern war. And this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys. And as always, in the end, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel and, support me on Patreon, on Buy Me and Coffee and too. And that will be it for today, guys. Have a nice rest of your week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.